Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. Today's November 2nd, 2024. It's a Saturday, last day in the office before I take a few days off. And I figured I'd do a surprise AMA. I haven't done one in a long time. I miss these AMAs. I really do. I enjoy them a lot. I really love talking to all of you. A lot going on in Cardano right now. We're in the middle of Chang plus one. It's on testnet. We're working our way towards that, and soon to be on mainnet, which means we have all these DREPs that will be in constitution season and budget season. And already lots of people are coming and sharing their opinions. Some are pretty good opinions, others are not so good. And there's a lot of Dunning-Kruger floating around as well. Having run a business for 9 years and in this IO and being in the cryptocurrency space for longer, dealing with hundreds of vendors throughout the world, I will remind people there's no reality where you can get credible good vendors and have them come in and pay them month to month for long arc projects. You just can't do it. Imagine a construction project where you say, hey, I want the best architects, I want the best engineers, I want the best construction people, and I want them to be totally devoted to my particular job site. And I want them to put the best materials in that job site. But by the way, I'm only going to pay you month to month, and I'm going to give you no certainty. And people with no experience in construction, people who have no idea how to build a building, are going to go and judge the quality of your work. And at any given moment, they can just pull the plug if they think you're overcharging. Oh, and by the way, a construction company over there has no experience at all, never done any of this before, is underbidding you by 30% or 40%. So the people with no experience in construction are going to go over and grab that company and say, well, why can't you match their price? I said, well, I have the best people in the world. That's literally what's happening right now with some of the comments floating around. So it's going to be a bit of education. It's going to be a bit of a fight. I've always been a big proponent of an annual budget, and then it goes to an entity that everybody binds to. A coalition comes together, tasked to do stuff, and then you take a look at the quality of the work on a monthly or quarterly basis. And if the members of the coalition don't do the right thing, you kick them out. So you still have oversight, but you segregate your oversight from the people doing things, and they come together. And you do this on an annual basis. If you do it on a monthly basis and you pay out, you're just not going to get any good people. There's no high quality people. I don't think there's any path forward for IO to participate under that model. How do I make payroll? How do I make long-term commitments? Like, for example, the Stanford laboratory I set up for Cardano, it's a $4.5 million 3-year commitment. How do I sign a deal like that with Stanford if we're only paid on a month-to-month basis? So after 2 months, because I pissed somebody off on Twitter, you guys cancel the funding. But I'm left with a 3-year commitment with Stanford. I can't sign that deal. So how does it work? You cannot do anything unless you have some form of annualized or beyond that basis if it's long arc work that requires a lot of stuff to do. So it's an education. There's going to be a lot of moving pieces to it. And hopefully over time, people can understand why certain things are being discussed in certain ways. And ultimately, the DREPs get to vote and the Constitutional Committee gets to vote, and they get to decide what to do with the budget process. It's also a really terrible idea of allowing people to surgically go into the budget retroactively and just because they don't like somebody, just shut a person's money off. And it becomes a popularity game, and it's a race to the bottom. You just won't get high quality work over a long arc of time. I mean, this is what's happened with NASA and other agencies as political priorities and preferences change for these long arc programs that they do. And when they do, new president comes in, cuts the budget, new president comes in, changes the budget, new president comes in, changes the budget. And so I guess we're going to Mars. Well, I guess we're not. I guess we're going to Mars and the moon. I guess we're not. Guess we're going to the moon, but not yet Mars. Well, I guess we're not. These types of things. You can't get anything done. You can't do mega projects, and you can't do those things if you don't have some certainty and stability. It also takes time to build up skill sets. Where are you going to hire top formal methods engineers? Where are you going to hire some of the finest scientists in the world? How do you incentivize them to train and learn how your technology works if there's absolutely no certainty in the payout of money for them? Doesn't make any sense at all to me. It feels good. It it really does. You go to Twitter and you say, "Oh yeah, month to month, let's do that. Let's have mob rule over every payment and just pull the money anytime." Or let's have a race to the bottom or an RFP competition for every little dynamic and thing inside the system. Okay, and that race to the bottom is what destroyed Boeing. They used to be one of the most elite engineer organizations in the entire world, and their effort to cut costs at any cost, they handed the keys of the king to the people making $15 an hour, had no experience at all or no business writing aircraft software. And then suddenly the Boeing 737s crash out of the air and the doors fall off. The ununionized people on drugs in the East Coast factories being forced to work 12-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts with limited training. They built some great airplanes, didn't they? How's Starliner doing? That you get what you pay for, and so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that entire debate. And I think Cardano community is really smart, and there's a lot of really good people in it, and people are very skilled and experienced. And Twitter is not reality, so we'll see what happens with it. But it's going to be a big debate. It's going to be a big fight. If we can get to an annualized basis and we can get to a stable structure, then we can actually make real meaningful change. If we can't do that, it'll just be chaos, and it'll be a race to the bottom, and it'll be impossible to maintain Cardano in any meaningful way. And the Treasury will have been a failed experiment, in my view. So we'll see what happens with it. All right. Let's get to your questions, huh? Hey, Charles, back to AMA mode. Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be in AMAs. I like AMAs. I'm going to write more. I'm going to do more AMAs. We're really going to focus on building my podcast studios up so I actually have appropriate location to do the AMAs from. It's going to take a little bit of time to do that. How the hell can you accomplish anything in such a short-sighted paradigm? I agree. It feels good, and it's a very populist thing, but you never get anywhere, and high-quality people don't even want to participate. You get what you pay for, and you have to give certainty to the best people because the best people don't have to work for you. They can go anywhere in the world, and they can work for anybody. Only the average people have to, or the sub-average people, because they can't work anywhere else. Don't sign anything with Stanford. Sure. Okay. Then we lose Dan Bonet. We lose David Shee, Benedict Bunce. We lose John Mitchell. We lose all these brilliant minds who are doing incredible work. All right. I guess some kids with no experience in cryptography can match the decades of experience for the world's top tech experts. Bring back the old Charles. Stop being so offensive. We need the liquidity, Charles. Yeah, I agree. We do. There's many ways we can do that. Charles, have you been a fan of motor racing? And not only am I a fan, I actually enjoy doing it myself. Let's see what we got down here. Do you think you'd be this motivated if you were born in Gen Z? No. Unfortunately not. Hey, Charles, hope all is well. I'm guessing you heard the sad news about Peanut. I tweeted about it, and I said, they're going to murder the squirrel. This was before they euthanized them, because that's what they always do. They take your animals, and then they kill them. And then somebody tweeted, you've lost the plot, Charles. And then today it comes out, TMZ, they killed the squirrel and the raccoon. Just think of the thought process about this. A guy rescues a squirrel that was going to die, gives it a 7-year life, wonderful life in his house. He trains it, does all these cool tricks. People have had squirrel pets throughout the years. It's never been an issue. Anonymous complaint comes in from some busybody. Then the government gets a warrant. 4 government agencies with 12 officers raid his home, spend 5 hours searching the home like he's a drug lord, take the squirrel, take the raccoon for the safety of the squirrel and the raccoon and the welfare of them, and then kill them. Does that make any sense at all to you? First off, there's murderers and rapists and burglars and all kinds of bad things happening in New York. But apparently they have the time to go after the influencer squirrel with 1 million TikTok followers who's been living in this dude's house for 7 years and is the poster child of an animal rights organization. Take the squirrel and murder it. They have time for that. Get a warrant for that. They really do. But they don't have time for the murderers and the rapists and the burglars and all the other things. That they just, sorry, we're just so busy. We're so under-resourced, but we have to kill the squirrel. Peanut has become the poster child for what the modern American government has become and why people are so angry. And yet people will still vote for that. Go figure. Will we see real-world assets and tokenization on Cardano? Absolutely. When midnight comes, and you can build hybrid applications. Big believer in that. I think we can get that done. Stop pissing people off. Stay focused. You have to give us more credit than you do. We don't need you to focus on non-essential things and policy. Well, what am I supposed to focus on? I have no official role or function in Cardano. I'm a human being. I have political opinions, and we are going to be debating the budget process right now. You guys get to decide what role I have and function I have, if any, in Cardano through the DREPs and the Constitutional Committee. And if your DREPs basically say we're going to structure a budget function in a way where it's physically impossible for a larger company to participate, like a Globant, a Modus Creator, or an IO, then I have no role at all in Cardano. Yeah, it's your decision, guys, of what you want. I will probably, after the election's over, get a little bit more tame, but it's been a long road, this election in particular. And I'm pretty disgusted with a lot of things that happen. And I am angry. I am very angry about what the SEC has done. And I'm very angry about what the U.S. government's done. And I want it to stop. And it's not stopping. And I don't believe the re-election of the party that's been in control for 12 years of the last 16 will solve that problem. I believe it'll actually exacerbate it and make it worse for everybody. And it's probably going to make me a little bit more disgruntled. If we get a relief valve and we stop the madness and they stop murdering Peanut the squirrel, maybe I won't be as angry. We'll see. GOP will also not solve your problems. Yeah, that's probably true. At least they won't make them worse. I honestly believe that. Say what you will about Trump, we tended not to go to war under him. The economy did pretty good. You guys are so brainwashed, you can't even admit that. Hi, Charles. When Genesis? Q1 of next year. Code's done. It's ready to go. The wisdom of the TSC was to strip it out of the release for Chang +1 to simplify the release and de-risk it, but it doesn't require a hard fork. So it'll work its way in. Looks good. Hey, Charles, will you ever go into politics? We'd love to see you there to improve the system. No. Absolutely not. Are we still in a bear market? We're in a bear market that is bull curious. It wants to identify as a bull, but it's not quite sure yet if it wants to do that. So after this election, we'll see. Everyone listening to this waffle while Dap Central is talking to actual builders. So why exactly am I disqualified as a builder? Is JED not an application? Is LACE not an application? Aren't these real things that are on the Cardano chain? Actually, they're going multi-chain. Midnight's not a real ecosystem that we're building right now. Cardano itself is not real. Doesn't exist. None of the people listening exist. All the projects on Cardano are fake. These types of things. Why the fuck are you here, RH? Why are you here? What are you doing here? Go to Dap Central. Go. You're banned. There we go. Ban user, delete their comments. You're gone. Dead to me. You can go to Dap Central. Rub one out for them. Pleased to see you again. It's always good to see you too. Charles, will the Cardano Summit ever be in Switzerland again? If I had my choice, I would have put it in Argentina. Foundation runs that. And so they're going to do their thing. I guess therefore paying people month to month too. Is it legal to have synthetic versions of gold, silver, Tesla, and Amazon on Cardano? Schrodinger's cat of legality. Yes and no. So legal in certain jurisdictions, illegal in others. That's the problem with these things. What to do with bots? Well, one of the things I am going to discuss in 2025 is how do I put in AI curation and other things into the comments section, and we can actually do AMAs a little differently. And it'd be fun to live stream to different platforms other than the big three. Ready for Rick and Morty season 8? Wubba lubba dub dub. I am very ready for it, sir. Cardano doesn't scale, but why? I'll give you one shot, Bitcoin curious. Tell me the technical reason why Cardano cannot scale. Go ahead and tell me. You have the floor. You can, to all the people here, you can let them know. You tell me, give it your best shot, your best argument. We're waiting for it. You said Cardano cannot scale. It does not scale. Why? What is the technical reason Cardano cannot scale? Everybody's waiting. You got 3,119 people, now 20, now 22, 25. They're waiting on you, sir. You have the floor. We're all with bated breath waiting for you to type that reply. Give it to us. Tell us why Hydra doesn't work. Tell us why Laos doesn't work. Tell us why rollups won't work on Cardano. Tell us why all our optimizations won't work. What is wrong with Ouroboros? Just waiting. Were you there? Yeah, John said it best. Crickets. Where's the dude? Huh. Just said something, but didn't have any evidence behind it. I'm shocked. I didn't know people did that over the internet, say things and didn't have any evidence. That's crazy. Oh, well. Charles, can you comment on the Bitcoin OS integration? Now, this is a very exciting one. For many, many years, I was in the group of people believing that Bitcoin had technologically stopped innovating. They got Taproot in, and it looks like through some clever application of zero-knowledge tech and Taproot, they are able to validate a zero-knowledge proof using Bitcoin on the Bitcoin mainnet. If that's the case, you hypothetically may be able to construct a trustless bridge between Bitcoin and another chain like Cardano. If that's the case, then you could construct hybrid applications where you could have a wallet with a dApp store, which we're building, and add Bitcoin support to that wallet. A Bitcoin user, assuming we have Babel fees, would then be able to select a Cardano DeFi application, interface with it, pay transaction fees in Bitcoin as if it was on the Bitcoin mainnet. And if we build it in the right way, hide the latency consideration, and then play around with that, whether it be a DEX or whatever, get their yields, get their stuff, and they feel like they live in the Bitcoin network. However, they're actually using Cardano under the hood through a wrapped asset that comes over through a trustless bridge. If we can get there and do that, it's a revolution because there's $1.3 trillion worth of Bitcoin, and billions of those are going to want to come take a visit as tourists to Cardano, spend their hard-earned Bitcoin to do cool and interesting things and make money, lose money, all kinds of stuff like that. And being a UTXO system, Bitcoin being a UTXO system, the way that these things will come together like hand in glove. The applications will be quite easy to develop. So there's Boss, Bitcoin OS, and there's Maestro. And then obviously we're going to be doing a lot of research. So the first thing I want to do is I want to work with the Bitcoin OS people to formalize how they've done the zero knowledge proof that's being integrated into Bitcoin. Then what I want to understand is a user experience between these two sides. So if one was to construct a seamless bridge and put these components together, how do you get to a user experience where it's you pick something in a catalog, you click a button and you're using it? And then we can demonstrate how one can use Bitcoin as TVL in Cardano projects and applications. And then we already have the Babel fees SIP written. I think it's SIP 118. It's called nested transactions. It will be the foundation that we need to implement a feature like this. So that can get out next year and the next hard fork. And then all this connecting tissue and infrastructure is a super high priority. So we're going to fast track the proofs with Bitcoin OS and understand how close they've gotten to that. I think they've solved it, but we have to verify it. And then the latency consideration, something else. There also needs to be a pub sub channel, probably something like MQTT, that connects both chains so that you can have information flow seamlessly to wallets on the Bitcoin side and wallets on the Cardano side. It's a big deal. It's a lot of money. A lot of work needs to be done for it, though. Will Bitcoin integration rise liquidity on Cardano? Yes, there's more liquidity in Bitcoin than Solana and Ethereum together times 2. So yes. Heard anything from CZ lately? He's doing well. We have no miners. We do not. But we could add them back with Midnight or with Minotaur. Thoughts on Ron Paul joining the Doge cabinet? It made me happy, guys. Talk about that Unity Party ticket. You got Trump, you got RFK, you got Tulsi, you got Elon, and now we got Ron Paul. They're all coming together right there. They're coming together. Wouldn't be prudent not to vote for them. It's a Unity Party. How about that? Any release date for Leo? Step 1 has got to prototype it. That's what we're doing. Which, by the way, is a multi-month effort involving lots of highly specialized people come together. But I guess if we're running month to month on the budget, I don't know. I can't give you any dates, can't tell you anything. I don't even know if we're going to get paid next month. Everybody's updating their resumes. Who wants to work at a job when Microsoft is trying to hire them at $500,000 a year and Facebook's trying to hire them at $600,000 a year and every other blockchain entity is trying to hire them and pay them $1 million a year plus tokens? Well, I'm sorry, working for Cardano, you only get paid a month to month. We have no idea if you're going to be funded for the next month. And some guy over the internet might not like a tweet you sent, so you lose your job. Okay, yeah, it's very sustainable. Very sustainable. When are you starting the carnivore diet? No, I'm not going to do the carnivore diet. Any native token listings on the big exchanges? Not yet, but it's going to happen with Midnight. And Midnight will lead the way. And unfortunately, we'll have to spend millions of dollars getting custodians and others to support it because there's very little CNA support on this side. It's almost as if an entity in the Cardano ecosystem responsible for the ecosystem should be funding that. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe, sorta. Oh, well, I guess I have to pay for it. Is Daedalus Turbo? Yeah, we got something better. We'll have a blog post on it pretty soon. Do you think that a decentralized government can really work when our main medium of information is a rage algorithm like X? We need a decentralized one. I could not agree more. We needed the ability to have adult conversations with each other with facts and evidence and take the emotions down and calm everybody down. And we have to stop judging people instantly based upon one thing that we heard that one time at band camp. Thanks, man. I like your videos better when you talk to your supporters. Fuck the trolls. Don't talk to them. Well, we like making fun of them. Some people watch just because they really like that. By the way, I'm still waiting for an answer about why Cardano cannot scale. I'm looking for it. I really am. He's been totally silent. Dr. Lesser, what are you and Malay going to talk about? So I did talk to Malay briefly, and we'll continue the engagement, continue the discussions. The challenge in Argentina right now is I don't even think the Malay government fully knows what it wants to do with blockchain. So there's this philosophical tension that's pulling on how things are operating there. So on one hand, you have a true libertarian and motosierra man, the chainsaw man. He's cutting the government. He's destroying everything in the government. And on the other hand, they're trying to run a government. Okay, so we're coming in on the government side and saying blockchain should be the spine of the government, and you run your government services on it. You plug things in, you allow a free market to form there, but the government maintains the spine and is accountable for that. Well, the libertarian side says the free market should just do everything and get rid of the government altogether. So I think where these things are going to form a synthesis, between your thesis and your antithesis, so your Hegelian dialectic. So that dialectical synthesis is probably going to be kill the central bank and allow private money to compete. But then essential government services need a spine, and that spine will be a blockchain spine. Now, what I advocated for, and I mentioned this to 3 different newspapers when I was down there and members of the Argentinian government, is that you need to write a Digital Argentina 2030 document and talk about not just blockchain, but AI and data, and talk about IoT and talk about cell phones and how you expect a person living in Argentina's digital life to interface with government services and how the free market comes in. From that, you can extract RFPs that then lead to meaningful work, which is bipartisan. It's on all the sides actually of the system. It's a quad partisan, I guess, because there's 4 major political parties down there. My big concern is if the Peronistas come in, they just tear out everything that Milei did. So you really don't make any meaningful progress. So a government project that's signed doesn't mean a lot because there's no notion of stability there. This is the government that just fired their IRS, the FID, for example. Whereas if you have a doctrine and the doctrine clearly articulates, and you get a lot of the private companies to come in and build up on it, I do believe that we definitely can get something done there. So we know the people, we know the relationships. Certainly there are large blockchains coming in, promising the entire world and, offering to pay God knows what to get a vanity deal so they can broadcast to all their followers about all the amazing progress that they made. These people are deeply inexperienced with government contracting, and they have absolutely no real partners in the jurisdiction to get these things done. They think they can just come in as Americans or Europeans and somehow they're going to run all of Argentina. You don't do that. You form a coalition of public and private interests. You bring local companies in Argentina together with government agencies, and you start from a doctrine of a goal that they want to get to so everybody can wrap their hands around that and understand. So we'll give a crack at trying to put that coalition together and try to write that document down. And I do believe philosophically that Milei is closest to something like Cardano than Solana or Ethereum or these other things. He could also adopt Bitcoin. The problem is it's not programmable, but it is with Cardano and Boss. So there could be a possibility that Bitcoin and Cardano could come together and actually be the spine of Argentina. And that would be really exciting and probably a good political compromise. Where are the mammoths? Before the end of the decade, so I've been told. Charles, why don't you run a Mastodon instance as an X alternative? I am going to start slowly moving from X into a different medium with a different form of curation. I just haven't figured out how to do it yet. And I'm going to figure it out. And it's going to become a priority. My first thing I'm doing is I'm just taking a reset, going to this 40 years of Zen and having some fun there. But absolutely, when I come back with clear eyes and a little bit less stress, I'm definitely going to pivot and try a different social media approach, because this one's not working for me and I'm just getting frustrated with it. What's behind the hate for Cardano? It does not make sense. They hate me. The Unity Party would like to execute Liz Cheney. So this is an example of how propaganda spreads. I listened to the 1.5-minute clip where Trump said that. I listened to it. And what he was talking about is Liz Cheney wants to send people to war. She should go out there and actually experience war firsthand and understand how horrible it is before she goes and commits us to war after war after war and killing all these young kids, and she's bloodthirsty. That is basically what Trump said. The liberal media took that and said, Trump said, kill Liz Cheney. These are not the same statement. One is saying before some politician in their 50s and 60s and 70s who's never fought in a war, never been in a war zone, and never had to sacrifice for the nation, commits our young children to go and die in wars that we shouldn't fight, maybe they should have a taste and experience of it to understand what they're committing our young people to do. Is a different statement from kill Liz Cheney. These are different statements. I listened to it. It's there. But the problem is we now live in two parallel realities where you see the same thing I see. We can write all the words out in sentences. We can do a, deductive logic on it. We can break them down sentence by sentence. And yet there's radically different interpretations because there's this aura of distortion and derangement and hate that's so strong, it's impossible to interpret a statement from somebody in good faith. It's a derangement. And you can't understand what the person's saying. You choose an interpretation that's as bad as humanly possible. The vast majority of Americans would agree that over the last 20 years in particular, America has been too hawkish. We've invaded too many countries. We've killed so many people with drones. We've built this giant intelligence apparatus that Snowden revealed, amongst others. We've done a lot of really horrible things. And our veterans are coming home with PTSD. We have the highest suicide rate of any army in the entire world, 22 soldiers a day. We're losing battalions to suicide. When you scale these things up, we lost Afghanistan. We literally handed it back to the people that we invaded, the Taliban. They're in charge again. And yet there's all these hawkish politicians saying, let's go for another round. Let's go for another round. And they're paying for it with your children's blood. Maybe that's a bad deal. And maybe the people who do that should not be rewarded with power. Maybe, just maybe. But you're so deranged. Your mind is so warped by the propaganda. It's impossible for you to get there because you just hate the man so much that even when he makes a good point, it can't be a good point. It has to be calling for the execution of somebody. That's where we're at in 2024. I want my tax money back. Yeah, that's why we put it on a blockchain so you can see where it goes. Wildly disappointing. Yeah, okay. I'd like to travel to the U.S. with my family. What are the most impressive areas you would recommend? We have some amazing national parks in the United States, and I'd highly recommend you go and check them out. Yosemite is really pretty. Yellowstone National Park is amazing. Haleakala, I'm a little biased. In Maui is a tremendous amount of fun. It really depends on how much time you got to spend and what your preferences are. Do you like mountains? Do you like deserts? Do you like sea? Do you like large countryside? Do you want highly urbanized areas or low population density? I prefer low population density, and I prefer beautiful nature, so I have a bias there. But even in cities, there's lots of cool stuff. What a lot of Europeans do, or people from different places, is that they'll just go to New York and LA and they say, I've seen the United States. I went to Los Angeles and New York. I know everything there is to know about the US. What about everything in the middle? I just assume it's kind of the same. No, it's like 26 countries in one. So there's an adventure everywhere, but you got to give me a little bit more. Lex Friedman just went to see the redwoods. Yeah, some of them are over 1,000 years old. Would you ever go elk hunting? Now, I sell guided hunts for bison on my ranch, and I have huge herds of elk on my ranch, hundreds of them, but I personally don't hunt. Just couldn't bring myself to shoot an animal. It's the great contradiction of my life. How is the level of decentralization measured? Check out the Edinburgh Decentralization Index. No one hates Charles. He just doesn't create enough and or the right buzz. Oh, no, I'm hated. Go to cryptocurrency Reddit. I assure you, my name is a sin there. Can't even talk about it. I got the lobster hookup in DC. What you got for me in DC? DC lobster hookup. That's talking a big game, man. There's a lot of good lobster down there in DC. Like literally, that's all I do. Go to DC, eat lobster. Who's your favorite philosopher and why? That's a deep question. Um, it depends on the flavor of the week. When you look at people like Bertrand Russell, he's probably the most rigorous of the rigorous philosophers, and he created this amazing deductive construct to walk his way through uh, dissecting an argument, dissecting a belief, and trying to turn it into as much of a repeatable, objective conversation as possible. So the whole field of analytic philosophy. You look at people like Wittgenstein, and there's this absolutely amazing deconstruction of language. Nietzsche talked a lot about the human condition, and there's the three schools of Viennese philosophy. You have the will to power, to will to meaning, and will to pleasure. So Freud is the pleasure side, and Viktor Frankl is the meaning, and Nietzsche was power, and man's pursuit and search for that. And Schopenhauer is tremendously cynical on the human condition. Others are very optimistic about it. So you can walk your way through philosophy, and as you do that walk through philosophy, all of these different philosophers have hints of brilliance and hints of things that are absurd and insane, whether it be extreme misogyny or their brain is being eaten away by syphilis, so they're obviously going a little crazy in certain dimensions, or an inability to communicate clearly. Dan Dennett, I really liked because he put so much emphasis and time on trying to clearly articulate what he was saying for everybody, as opposed to a lot of these people, especially the postmodernists, the Foucault people, who they just made an art form out of obfuscating what they're actually saying, because I think they were saying nothing the more I think about it. I love the absurdists. Albert Camus is one of my favorite philosophers there, and his whole book that he wrote on Sisyphus is a great example of life and how to think about life and the love of the system as opposed to the love of the destination. Uh, Stoic philosophy has really recently become vogue, and people are dragging Aurelius and Seneca and others out of the grave. It's saying, okay, guys, we need you again. We're going to have a return to Stoicism. I think that's the Jordan Peterson effect, where he came in and opened up a whole can of worms of a tree of philosophy, and young men that get into that trap, they start exploring all the branches of that tree, and they bring it together. But there are some good life lessons there. So different boats for different floats, but really philosophy is about, well, where is two things. You either have a set of problems that you want to work your way through and solve, or you have a destination you're trying to figure out to go to. So self-meaning of your life, or understanding why things have happened or how to resolve things that are happening inside your life. There is definitely a philosophical component there. And any good philosopher has to have a statement about the nature of suffering and the need of sacrifice, and also how to reconcile the fact that evil exists and bad things exist, and to forgive people. And what does that process look like? Regressive, terrible philosophies like the woke stuff, for example, they are regressive and terrible because they have no doctrine of forgiveness. Once a person's been labeled problematic, you have to hate them for the rest of time. It's a holy war between you and them. All the good stuff tends to have some rites of passage or rituals you can go through to cleanse your sins and basically be healed of these things. Mark Andreessen actually has this great thing where he basically breaks down wokeism and he puts it into a religious context, and he shows how it's becoming like a religion, but it's a religion like an Old Testament religion, lots of rules and no mercy. God is very angry. It's the old God. And that is what it is. Also, philosophers should ignite curiosity. They should dance around and explore and understand problems in a way that when you read it, it doesn't necessarily provide you clarity on the solution, but at the very least gives you some love of the pursuit of the answer to that problem. For example, when you think about, are humans intrinsically evil or not, Peter Sanger is an example of that. The denial of death is another example of that. A philosopher wrote that. I forget his name, and it'll come to me in a little bit. But there's dozens of these things that exist that they kind of give a lens into something. You read it, and if it's good philosophy, it invites you to carry that with you as an open question that you'll have for a long time. I've been reading a lot of transhumanist philosophy as well, recently. This idea of, well, where do we go when we augment people? Because I'm a participant in that industry. I have a synthetic biology company. I own a biotechnology company. We do anti-aging and regenerative medicine. We're not too far away from gene therapies or other interventions. We're actually changing the human organism to optimize it towards some end, either to repair damage that's been done or to prevent future damage, or to augment and enhance the lifespan or capabilities in some way. So that house of philosophy, transhumanism, is not well understood or fleshed out. You have the Nick Boströms or other people, but you don't have a dominant set of theories yet that people can fall to and say, okay, these guardrails from a bioethics viewpoint make sense, outside of fiction like Gattaca and these types of things. But yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's one a lot of people should ask. And as you get older, your favorite philosophers change. And so when I was younger, I really liked the black and whiteness of Bertrand Russell. I really enjoyed analytic philosophy because I had this belief you could turn the crank and derive answers to things. He spent his whole early part of his mathematical career with Alfred North Whitehead and others trying to do that in mathematics itself, and it didn't work. And as I've gotten older, I've started realizing and valuing that philosophy that allows you to deal with the consequences of ambiguity and navigate the ocean of ambiguity while keeping a stable core are more meaningful and much more important, which is ironically how virtue ethics and a lot of old philosophies like Stoicism have become resurrected again, because that's the entire thing. They lived in the most uncertain world possible. They didn't have any understanding of the world beyond the gods are doing things to us. So volcanoes were erupting and plagues would happen and people would randomly show up and kill you. And, that was that. Raiders would show up and destroy your village, and the sea people, they ended all the Bronze Age empires, and we don't know who they were. And so that's an example of the world that they lived in. So you needed some construct that allowed you to deal with extreme uncertainty and ambiguity. I've started valuing that far more, as I've gotten older. And I'm starting to realize that there's more to human consciousness than a very materialistic Thomas Hobbesian view of human consciousness. So I'm starting to really explore and understand more about altered states of human consciousness and people who think around the consequences of what would happen if a human could perceive more. Because we only perceive like a little dot, and the universe is so much vaster. A great example would be, if you're listening to this, go to Google and search how bees perceive flowers, and you can click images and you can see pictures of it because they can see more of the visible spectrum than we can, which is really remarkable. And you say, "Wow, that's incredible!" And then you start thinking around, well, how does everything else perceive stuff? There's humans; they have a condition called synesthesia, and they perceive music and the written word and concepts differently. Like there's a wonderful book called Wednesday's Indigo Blue, which talks about people following people with synesthesia and how they live with that condition. Utilitarianism currently dominates the world. I wouldn't say so. I really don't. You would think that, but there's a lot of policy that benefits very few people, but harms the vast majority of us, especially on the environmental side. If you're utilitarian, then all the policy would be basically trying to maximize the human condition. So your HDI and your GDP and these other things would be increasing, but your wealth inequality would be shrinking, and human suffering would be overall, as an aggregate average, going down. It's actually quite the opposite. So I don't believe it runs the world. Why didn't you pursue a medical career? I wanted to be a surgeon, and I had every opportunity to go down that road. And I was a little lost in my early 20s and teens. The reason I didn't go into it was that I realized the medical system for what it is. It's a hyper bureaucratic system that has put a gargantuan middleman between the patient and the physician. And the vast majority of physicians are getting burnt out and don't enjoy practicing medicine unless they're independently wealthy, or they can construct fantasy bubbles where they can practice medicine the way they want. They don't care about the consequences, either because they don't need the money or they're willing to lose their license. And this idea of spending decade plus of my life to become something where I have no relationship with the patients, I have really no say in the protocols or treatments because you have to follow evidence-based, standard of care, which is picked by pharmaceutical companies and bureaucrats and insurance companies, and also the hyper bureaucracy where the majority of your time you spend with the physicians doing paperwork instead of doing medicine. And then when you know that there are things that can massively improve the health of the patient, but you're not allowed to do those things because of bureaucracy or regulations, that was a pretty bitter thing. And we all are kids, and we have these fantasies that doctors are a certain way. I just had a sneak peek behind the curtain because my father was an internist, and his father was an OBGYN. And we went from my grandfather practicing medicine in the late 50s and 60s as an OBGYN, where there was no insurance companies, and he took cash pay and he delivered babies. And if the woman couldn't pay, he said, don't worry about it. And if they could pay, he paid. He made more money pre-Medicare than after Medicare came through. And he lived very well back in the 60s because, the rich paid for the poor. And he had a direct relationship with all of his patients to this hyper bureaucratic system. And now building a clinic, I experience it firsthand. I put about $100 million into my clinic in Gillette, Wyoming, and it's growing. We're at 10,000 square feet. It'll be 90,000 square feet by the middle of next year. And we have probably about 30 providers now. And it's a beautiful facility. And I put all this amazing artwork and technology and all these great providers into it. But every step of the way, we've been dealing with not only the bureaucracy, but just the stupidity and pettiness of people. The local hospital has been a nightmare to deal with, and they're led by stupid people. And all of the small town politics come in. We had to fight for months to get building permits when we knew damn well, and they knew damn well, that we'd done all the work right. Eventually we got the permits, but the problem with that was it pushed our construction deadline. So now we have to build during the wintertime. And we told them that. We said, if you delay these permits, I'm going to be pouring concrete and doing dirt work, which we're doing right now, in November, in December. It gets down to -40 with tons of snow and 100-mile-an-hour winds in Gillette during the wintertime. It's a hellscape. It's a frozen hellscape during the winter. It's so hard to build there. So now our construction workers have to go out and just deal with that. They didn't care. I don't know why, and It's extraordinary to me that when you want to try to do something new and revolutionary that benefits lots of people and saves lives, that so many people get in the way of that for no benefit of their own, just for the sake of preserving and protecting a system that's harming people. It's a strange thing to me. We had one patient come in, and she'd gained quite a bit of weight in a short period of time, and her doctor said, "Hey, you're fat. You need to go on a diet." And our doctors looked at her and said, "You're in heart failure." I just don't understand how you make mistakes like that. But you see it, and when you do, you can correct it as best you can, and it saves lives usually. But the fact that it took this kind of investment from private sector and all this stuff to prevent it from maturing and growing, it's an indication that it's a deeply unhealthy and deeply sick industry, which, by the way, makes a lot of money for people. It's a $4 trillion industry in the United States. It's one of the largest. And it's not led by and for the people. It's led by and for private equity groups, insurance companies, and pharmaceutical companies. And they don't give a shit at all about your health. Charles, play some Leonard Skinner, Freebird. You're the best, Charles. Been following you since 2017. Well, thank you, sir. Yeah, the statin scam. Don't even get me started with statins. Wealth inequality is an important aspect of our financial systems, which Charles has focused on. Stop telling him to stop talking about it. I agree completely. Wealth inequality is a huge deal if you live in a zero sum system. If you live in a growth system and new industries are created, billionaires are a byproduct of innovation. That's not the case when you talk about static, very hierarchical societies like the old European aristocracies, where the people who were rich were born into it and they didn't contribute anything to society. They were just born into a privileged class. And everybody was told you have to stay in your part of the vertical. So there's no social mobility up and down the ladder. So you just try to be comfortable as a serf, but you're never going to be a lord, and you're just born into that right. Meritocratic systems allow social mobility, and you tend to see a great degree of social mobility. Nepotism, corporatism, and corruption, where the public sector and the private sector marry each other, they basically create an oligarchy and a plutocracy. And the people at the top stay at the top, and they have intergenerational wealth and intergenerational companies, and they just kind of run the whole show. And then they lecture all of us, about how bad the free market is. Are you familiar with the Austrian School of Economics? I absolutely am. Ludwig von Mises and the rest of the gang. And by the way, we actually have an Austrian in office now. That's Malay. Very excited about that. What League of Legends champion did you play? I played Zillion and Can't Kill You in the Zillion, Zerath, a lot of mid and support. And I also did enjoy Kassadin. Kassadin's very hard to play, but it's a lot of fun. How many Indians do you have in your team? Quite a few, I think. Actually, our chief science officer at the clinic is from India. Wonderful guy. His name's Sanjay. Yeah, you support ours. That's the point. I love how you have this long dialogue about philosophy and life and the structure of the economy, and this guy right here just goes in. He's like, "You support the Republicans." Apparently my entire value as a person is whether I'm in bucket A or bucket B. Do you not understand, J. Crew, that you're the problem? You're the problem. All your complaints when you go and you do your little hipster thing and you have your little man bun and you get on your little scooter and you drive through and you complain to people and you wear your white man for Harris t-shirt on and you tell all your friends how the world is just going to be a better place if they all vote for Team Blue. And every single person who's on Team R is the problem. And they're the ones who destroyed society. Team R has only been in charge of the White House for 4 of the last 16 years. So 3/4 of the problem, if they're proportional, should be on the blue side. And you're just going to go pull that lever again for blue. Because here's the thing, you're propagandized. And there's not Team R versus Team D. It was when it was Bush versus Clinton. It was when it was Jeb Bush going to run against Hillary Clinton. Trump came in as this big bowling ball and basically completely changed the dynamics of American politics. And now you just got this bizarro unity party where strange bedfellows are together. You got J.D. Vance and Bill Ackman and Tulsi Gabbard and Robert Kennedy and Donald Trump and all these people. And they just don't make sense. They normally don't fit together. They shouldn't fit together. Robert Kennedy fitting together with Elon Musk? I don't see how that jigsaw comes together. It's a unity party ticket. It's not Republican. It's something completely new and different that we've never really seen before. It's the birth of a new political party, much like when the Whigs collapsed and the Republicans sprang up from the ashes of that in the 1850s in American history. So where this goes and what happens with it, Trump's very old. He's only going to last one term if elected, and there's going to be a great reset in 2028. And there's going to be the biggest political fight you've ever seen in your life. Now, if Trump is elected, here's my prediction. We are going to have 4 straight years of people going batshit insane. 4 straight years. Just literally saying America will then split into 2 Americas, and we will be living in mutually exclusive realities. One will be saying, hey, actually things are getting better. The economy's improving. Hey, we're not going to war anymore. This is great. Troops are coming home. Actually, all this government bureaucracy is starting to go away. Huzzah. And the other group of people saying the death camps are being set up. Hitler is in power. Every aspect of American society is being destroyed. All minorities are being oppressed. The police are being basically given SS, collars and told to set things up and the Gestapo are in control of these things. And they're going to exist on parallel. And you'll see 24 hours a day, people just drinking that from a cup. That's what's going to happen. And this side that's listening to that nonsense is going to get so angry that by 2028, they're going to feel like they're the revolution, and they're going to start bombing people. They're going to take to the streets, shoot people, throw bricks through windows, all kinds of things, because it's a madness that's there. And it's been getting worse and worse and worse every election cycle. The last one, we had BLM. All the cities had huge protests. People took over parts of the cities for a time. And it was, I guess, totally justified, mostly peaceful violence. In fact, it was so absurd. I remember reading an open letter by public health officials and doctors saying we shouldn't shut down the BLM protests, citing COVID, because racial justice was more important than COVID. And we apparently, the pandemic won't affect all these people marching densely packed through the streets, hundreds of thousands of them, because they're marching for BLM and somehow they're safe doing that. But everybody else, your business has to be shut down. Your place of faith has to be shut down. You can't educate your children. You can't leave your home. You can't go to a restaurant. If you can, everything has to be tightly controlled and moderated. You got to show papers to even do that. You have to stand in the queue 6 feet apart. And everything has to be treated like we're basically in an Armageddon pandemic. But if you're marching for BLM, it's like all the old rules can apply, and you can just take to the streets like the old Martin Luther King rallies, and everybody's deeply, deeply packed together and densely there and sleeping with each other and coughing on each other and all these things, because that's what young kids do. That has no public health consequence. That's that parallel reality that people live in. And you explain this to people, And certain people of certain political persuasions, they say it doesn't look like anything to me. That's not a contradiction. We have to do that. It's the just thing to do. Why? Because the government said so. They're so brainwashed into this thought process. They can't escape from it. And they're stuck in that bipolar world of one side versus the other side. And it's really sad because that's not how you run a nation. It's not how you run a business. Could you imagine running a business where the CEO says, I get to be the CEO because the other CEO is so bad, and if you elect that CEO, then you've put Hitler in charge of the company. Yeah, but what are you going to do to make Microsoft a better company? Like, what's your strategy? What's your vision? What's your policy? How are we going to? What's our AI strategy? Oh, I have a better AI strategy than that other CEO that's running. Believe me, I'll be the best. And that other person that's running is literally Hitler. And if you put that person in, he'll kill all the Microsoft employees. It just, that's madness. You wouldn't pick a leader this way, but that's how we're actually doing it right now in the United States of America. Are you happy with that? And when you say a comment like that, you're part of the problem. You're not solving anything. You're not moving us forward. Ever meet Dan Bilzerian? No, although I did get into a Twitter fight with him once because he was writing a book and he said, what should I title it? And I said, Dances with Herpes. And then I think he blocked me. Midnight update. Midnight's going really, really well. We have the testnet launched October 1st. We have a lot of activity on the testnet, a lot of people using it, a lot of people doing stuff. We have beautiful roadmap, ton of partnerships we're starting to build. Fami's working real hard on that, and the team is writing a ton of code. It's the most difficult product we've ever built, and we're trying to build it, correcting a lot of the mistakes that we made the first time around. And it has a very clear and beautiful use case. It wants to be a layer 2 to everyone. So we're learning how to do the hybrid application stuff. We're learning how to build bridges. We're learning how to get all those fine nuances and pieces put together. But it's taxing. It takes a huge amount of my time. Do you believe in cyclic bull runs? If it's true, we'll have one in 2025. Anybody notice other chains steal Cardano's narratives and advertise them? Doesn't look like anything to me. Maybe. We need Hosted back. Yeah, I remember that. What happened to the Kiva donations? We still do them, but I started my own microfinance firm. That's RealFi. We're actually building it. One day it'll work its way into Lace. And that's one of my goals before I retire, is to see that happen. We're working real hard on it. What is your favorite country you've visited? I'd say like they're the top 5, but Iceland's definitely in the top 5, and Switzerland and Japan are also in the top 5. Absolutely love them. Thoughts on your man Yonatan's Project Caspa? Well, I'll tell you what I don't like. I don't like the marketing where people take things I've said out of context and then use it to justify a random crypto project. I've mentioned him because I do mention scientists who write papers and do things from time to time, and you've taken interviews from these years past, put them together as some form of endorsement, and then said Caspa is going to beat Cardano because reasons. Guys, stand on your own merits. You don't need to take stuff out of context of a completely different founder of a completely different project and then inject that in as a proof point for why your project is so good. If Caspa is great, I'm sure you have plenty of things to say that stand on their own merits about it. So it leaves a very poor taste in my mouth, to be honest with you. I don't know anything about the project outside of the fact that probably it's using DAGs because that's kind of their thing. I mean, it's been their thing. There was Ghost and Spectre and Phantom and all these things was Aviv Zohar and Yonatan Lipinski. Met him once in the Bitcoin summer school in Corfu. Charles, do you think being a very knowledgeable in a few fields makes you a strong Dunning-Kruger in some other fields that you passionately talk about? Okay. It's probably a reference to the vaccines, right? Rebel science. I suspect you're in the life sciences and biotechnology. Tell me, why'd they vaccinate the control group? First time ever. Why'd they do it? You know damn well why they did it. Dunning-Kruger, huh? I'm first to admit the things I don't know, but expertise is not all that it's cracked up to be these days. Do you get shadow banned on YouTube? I've had videos taken down. AMAs taken down for medical misinformation. Will they ever cure herpes? Asking for a friend. Herpes is an amazing virus. It actually hides in such clever ways. And that's why it flares up from time to time. Interestingly enough, there seems to be a link between how COVID hides in the body and herpes too. Go figure. HIV as well, which is why HIV drug research actually helped research for herpes, where you look at acyclovir and valacyclovir and these other drugs that they use to treat it. It's a fascinating virus. I'm sure they'll crack it. Will you be tuning in on election night, or will you isolate yourself for your own mental health? I'm going to be at the meditation thing in a pod on ketamine with all these wires all over my head, an EEG thing for 10 hours a day, learning how to reach the deepest states of meditation a human can reach, perhaps beyond, or so I've been told. So no, I'm not going to be watching the damn election, but I know people are going to tell me about it. I'm going to get back to my hotel all tired and broken and everything. And like, you can't believe what happened. You wouldn't believe what was said. Damn it. There's no way to get out. He's trying to get out of the matrix. I absolutely am. Nice. I will do ketamine legally. Well, it's a Schedule 3 substance, so yes, you can. Since we have you here, Charles, can we please urge the community to ratify some marketing budget? Well, here's the thing. Month-to-month payments on the budget, no way to do marketing. Imagine this. Every single time we want to go to a conference for the community and you have an initial budget for it and you're starting to work on the project, you have to go back and have an on-chain vote to get it done. And every DREP and every constitutional committee member has to get involved, publicly debate it for a month. So consensus, should we go? Well, maybe. Okay, let's go. Actually, let's bring like 50 of the top Cardano projects there to showcase them. Well, got to go back and get a vote done. Okay, let's hope it passes. Oh, it didn't pass. Sorry. And then you call up the consensus guys. Yeah, guys, I'm sorry. The funding didn't come through. We can't sponsor you. Oh, and yeah, it's an ADA, and ADA went down 30%. I have to go back to get more for the sponsorship because we can't transfer the ADA into a stable coin to stabilize it for forward payments. So apparently everybody just has to take ADA, but we can't stabilize the ADA in some way using perps or other things. Because remember, nobody wants to transfer it to anything else. Okay. So let's just hope to God it stays stable for something 6 months off. Yeah, because every cryptocurrency stays stable for things that are 6 months off, right? So the answer is no, you can't if that's your mindset. And if D-reps are saying that, I would highly encourage you not to delegate to them. You need people that are responsible who have done this before. Annual budgets give you the ability to be strategic. They allow you to plan multiple things far into the future and bring people together in a multi-month process and make sure that they know that you can cover things. You can cover their travel costs. You can cover their advertisements. You can help them get swag. You can help them show stuff off. And if you're month to month, you have no certainty in any of these things. You can make a promise to them and say, well, at any given moment, person can just pull it out. And if it's a race to the bottom, well, I'm so sorry. Actually, this vendor over there that's never done any of this before, they're 30% cheaper. So we're going to go with them. And we think they're going to do it right. Get what you vote for. What are your thoughts on hydrogen-powered mining stacks? Okay, so hydrogen power is an energy carrier. It's not an energy producer. So energy producers are where you get more energy out than you put in to the thing. So hydrogen stores energy and you lose a lot over time. So you'd be lucky to get 50% efficiency or less. So it's a okay energy storage mechanism, and in certain places where you have high energy abundance, where you can't capture it, like North Dakota with all the wind energy they have, or Iceland with all the geothermal energy, it actually is a pretty good vehicle to capture that energy for use later on. But if you're going to power something with hydrogen, like mining, you're powering it with basically a battery. So where did you get the electricity from? A fossil fuel backend, a nuclear backend, or an alternative energy backend? Okay, those are kind of your options here. So where is it coming from? The hydrogen. Or are you making the hydrogen from natural gas? You can do that. So people say these things, but they really have to think around what they mean. I'm actually a proponent of hydrogen power, especially for aviation and for seafaring. It makes a lot of sense to me because you can make it, especially in seafaring, because you can make it from the ocean, and you have enormous surface area where if you want to regenerate a boat, you could lay miles of solar panels behind a large boat, generate an enormous amount of electricity, turn it into hydrogen gas, and then store it inside the ship. It makes a lot of sense to me. A very simplistic system. It's easy to do, easy to set up. You don't have to have any rare earth metals or complicated batteries or other things. Man, you ever try to deal with a lithium fire? Imagine a lithium fire on a boat. That's a bad deal. So that makes sense to me. And it makes sense in aviation because those are well-regulated, well-controlled environments. Doesn't make any sense at all, though, as kind of energy replacement. It doesn't do that for you. You need a backbone like hydroelectric or geothermal or nuclear or solar or wind or fossil fuels. So just counter question on what we're waiting for, a bottom for getting the budget ratified is what you mean? No, I never said that at all. So I'm saying you should ratify it on an annualized basis, should have audit and oversight built into it. It should have intermediate agencies that are responsible for the distribution of funds and management of the funds. And if there's stuff left over, they return it to the Treasury at the end of the year. And you allow that to be done at the institutional level. So the blockchain makes the distribution, and then the individual agencies are responsible for the oversight and distributions. And if they're not doing a good job, you can fire those agencies. And in the next annual budget, you pick different ones for that. But it's the only sensible way of doing that, because there's tons of complex negotiations and discussions that have to be held to do these on a case-by-case, company-by-company, day-by-day basis, out in the open at the DREP level. It will never converge. And any reasonable company, mine own included, will just bow out. There's no point to being involved in a system like that, because every single thing you do is under immediately public scrutiny, even when there's no sense for that. Well, why did you spend this much here? Why did you spend this much here? It's like, well, we said this is what it costs. You said yes to it. Yeah, but I didn't like the fact that, this guy took a business class flight over there. Even though we agreed to this budget, we want to fight over that $1,200 expense for this one thing. Oh, okay. Why am I working? I can just go work for another group where we have a standard contractual relationship where they say, do work X, Y, and Z. We say, great, we do work X, Y, and Z. I say, what quality and when do you want it done by? And as long as we do that, it's contract satisfied. If you take it into a different system where everything is nitpicked, nothing ever gets done, everything gets weaponized, and then you end up bike shedding over the stupidest shit possible. And it's so frustrating and impossible to do anything, and nobody knows even how to work with you. And also, you don't necessarily have the ability to pay your people. You approve a $100 million budget, but ADA loses half its market value. You actually only have $50 million in reserve for that. So do you go back for another budget? Well, the price went down. We don't really think we should do that. Can just everybody work for half price? Is that really where we want to go with it? Think it through. Exactly. Micromanagement toxicity. And this is exactly what happens when you govern by Twitter and you govern by a continuous rolling budget process instead of an annual process. It's a nightmare otherwise. You guys have everything you need to be successful. I designed Cardano really well. And there is a wonderful set of reserves that can carry Cardano to the next level, but it has to be utilized in a systematic way. You have to be methodically careful about how you handle that way. And you have to respect the fact that there are institutions in Cardano who are here to help. And if you just view everybody as the enemy or corrupt or evil, we will not get anything done. And those institutions have no incentive to stay and receive that abuse and treatment. We just go do other stuff. By the way, you can't do this if you go month to month. Annual budget put aside for legal challenges. Okay, well, if we go, let's play the thought experiment. Large law firm comes in and says, I need a retainer. I'm sorry, I can't pay you retainer. I have to ask for approval from the community for that. Oh, the community says, why does this law firm need a $250,000 retainer? I don't understand that. No, we're only going to pay him a $100,000 retainer. Well, the law firm says, I'm sorry, I can't work for you. Then you say, well, I'd like to pay you in ADA. Oh, no, we don't accept ADA. Well, can I convert it to dollars? Nope, can't do that. It's ADA only. Okay. Sorry, law firm won't work for you. See how hard it is. I've lived this for 9 years, guys. Sounds great over Twitter, doesn't it? It's a great tweet. People go rah, 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 and they get excited about it till they actually have to run something. So why don't we keep a captive marketing firm within the group of companies in the IOHK ecosystem? There's an idea. And they have to have some certainty beyond month to month, or else they'll invest absolutely nothing into learning what Cardano is about. Did you read The Deficit Myth by Stephanie Kelton? Kelton, yeah. No. Is it a good book? What's the TLDR? Charles Hoskinson, your thoughts. Do you think consciousness could be a quantum process such that non-locality of consciousness occurs via entanglement? It's a great question. It's an interesting question. It's something that Roger Penrose kind of flirted with when he talked about the brain potentially being a quantum system. I don't know enough. I really don't. I'm very curious myself. It would explain a whole bunch of things like those spidey senses you get in remote viewing, and then also people having an abnormal connection to other people. And like I know somebody that when their mother died, they felt it that day, and they were told the next day that their mother had died, even though their mother lived in a different country. So how would you know? Just like, hey, something's happened. So a quantum system would potentially have that because of entanglement, but I don't know. It's a really cool and interesting area of research, and it needs to be brought out of pseudoscience into real science. Did you see the Reddit thread about calls for transparency within IO? So here's what happens, guys. I got a development contract to build Cardano. Got about $36 million worth of Bitcoin, got about $6 million worth of ADA, mark to market at the time it was received. Add those two things together, it was a $38 million payment. So we built Cardano alongside lots of other people, and we're well past any semblance of delivered product from what I was contracted to do. Spent out of my own pocket $450 million for this ecosystem. Then people go to Reddit and they say, IO is a public company, apparently, and everything about our company, our profits and losses, should be publicly disclosed, even though we're a private development firm. What development firm in the right fucking mind would go and work for the Cardano ecosystem if that development firm has to then be scrutinized like a government agency? And every single thing in our books, who we do business with, how we make money, has to be publicly revealed to all of our competitors. We're not a public agency. We were contracted to build Cardano. We did it. We delivered it. It's here. It exists. There's 1.4 million delegated wallets. The very fact it has an on-chain government debating things is an indication of mission accomplished. And I stuck around because there were certain things I really wanted to make sure were done really well out of generosity of my heart. And I did those things. Dan Larimer ran away. The vast majority of people from my generation in the crypto space are retired now, going on yacht parties and having fun with people. I stayed in the trenches with everybody. And then I see these people come to Reddit and they say, let's go attack IO because it's sexy and it's trendy. And that's what we do. We stayed because it was the right thing to do. And there was a lot of great things to do and a lot of great things to build. And that's what we did. But my money's my money. Okay. I made my money and I earned it. I built stuff. We wrote more than 200 papers. You have 168 scientists we brought to bear. We set up labs all across the thing. We built this giant movement with all these people with us. That's what we did as an ecosystem together. So I'd like to say mission accomplished for that. And then there's the future of Cardano, and there's discussions about how do we get that done. There needs to be a coalition of marketing and branding and growth, and a coalition of development companies. And if you're paying them for future work, it's perfectly reasonable to ask for an oversight mechanism to verify that the work that they got paid for is done. But oversight doesn't mean then every detail of their personal lives are open to scrutiny. You're paying them for services. You're paying them for papers. You're paying them for code. You're paying them to do stuff, to attend places, to build things. Just like a plumber comes to your house and there's a leaky pipe. You don't go and walk up to the plumber and say, how's your sex life? It's so sad your wife left you. Why did that happen? What were your innermost secrets? Can I see your bank accounts? You're paying them to fix your fucking pipe. That's how it works. And so you look at what's been done, how it's been done, what's been delivered, and you can compare it to the standards of the entire market as a whole. And here's the other thing. Who's the counterparty? People who paid me were for a different time and a different product than Cardano today. The secondary market is completely different from what happened in Japan. And the relationship was there between us and the Japanese. And this stuff here in Cardano's different world entirely. So grow up. You have to ask reasonable and realistic things. And you know what? You have to stop looking at every single person as an adversary. You have to stop looking at all the people who have been here for years of their lives. Now, for me, almost a decade now. Every day showing up behind this microphone, running a company under enormous amounts of criticism, internally and externally. Every day, figuring out ways to get things done, moving the ball forward, no matter how painful it is and how much criticism it is, and then to go, you know what? That is the enemy. Let's go look into that guy. Let's go burn him down. Yeah, he's the problem. Oh yeah, he screwed all of us by taking something from 72 million to 12 billion. What other person would be willing to do that? Honestly. And this is another one of these lies here. Satoshi disappeared without spending a single Bitcoin. It wasn't possible to sell those Bitcoin in 2010. I know because I was around during that time period. These guys, Vitalik, Charles, Gavin, just love to sell you their tokens. So I'm selling tokens right now, Juan. Right now in this meeting, right here, selling tokens. You Bitcoin maxi. I'm selling them. Well, you're selling Bitcoin. Uh-huh. Yeah, you know what you're doing in your mind? You buy the Bitcoin and you have these illusions in your mind that you, the blessed one who has purchased the Bitcoin, will have the right for Bitcoin to go to $250,000, $500,000, $1 million. And then you'll sell that Bitcoin and you'll buy yourself a big house and a penis extension and hair transplant. And you'll finally be able to get that woman because you're an incel living in your mom's basement. You deserve all those gains because you knew the chosen one, the sound money, Bitcoin was there. You never built anything. You never created anything. You weren't there in the beginning. You weren't a founder. You didn't deal with all the bullshit, the scrutiny, the legal issues and consequences. You didn't have to hire people. You didn't have to write software. You didn't have to write papers. No, you just bought a fucking token so you could sell the token. But that makes Satoshi so pure. It makes Bitcoin so pure. It makes everything so magical and wonderful about your ecosystem because there's certainly no greed and avarice with Mike Saylor going around telling the world that he's going to buy Bitcoin and it'll be worth $1 million. And everybody invests in him so they can sell at later point at a higher price point. And they're all virtuous people. They're all virtuous people. When BlackRock does it, they're virtuous people. When people innovate and create completely new things that Bitcoin can't do, they're shitcoin scammers. They're evil people. They're disgusting people. And Satoshi's perfect. Absolutely perfect. He's God. Everything about him is God. And exactly right. All cryptos are useless except for Bitcoin. You know, it's the thing about the altcoin space versus Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin. I really do. I love where Bitcoin started. I love the original Bitcoin ecosystem. It was so much fun. It was so amazing. There was no maximalism. When we saw things like Namecoin come out, said, wow, that's cool. That's interesting. Litecoin came out. Wow, that's cool. That's interesting. And then somewhere along the way, this crowd of people came in and they develop the religious fervor and they feel justified because they buy their place in line and they say the only obligation I have is to hold that place in line. And one day, 10 years from now, that place in line will be worth 100x of where I purchased it from. And it's my financial future. And I say, okay, great. Are you a Bitcoin Core developer? No. Did you contribute anything to the protocol? No. Are you helping with adoption? Are you honestly helping with adoption? Everybody who doesn't believe the things I believe is evil, is a scammer, is a criminal. Doesn't really seem like you're creating an open tent for people to come in. It seems like you're creating a test that drives people out. So, or you're not helping with adoption. Okay, are you making it an attractive, interesting thing for people to own? Not really. Not really. You're just saying the price go up. That's pretty much it. What utility does that provide to society? Exactly. Like when I purchased that Bitcoin, what voice do I have? Can I vote on anything? No. Do I get a say in the operation of the ledger? No. Okay, so I have a digital asset that costs energy to construct. Somehow, just the mere presence of this is going to fundamentally transform the economic, political, and social systems of the world. Is the United States going to run its elections on Bitcoin? I don't know. I don't really know how to do that, but maybe I don't know. So then we figure out how to build bridge and people come together, and now you have Cardano making Bitcoin better. And so, the only reason they would be wanting to do that is they're shitcoin scammers, allowing us for the first time ever to spend our Bitcoin on things with utility, like dApps. All these dApps that have come out in the last, 10 years, and this whole industry, this whole revolution, we finally get to do something with them. That must be a scam, because the only thing we're allowed to do is buy our place in line and wait to sell 10 years later and dump on the next person who's buying their place in line. And that next person who buys is being told that he will get 100x or so forth. And Bitcoin will go to $1 billion of Bitcoin, $1 billion. And it will save everybody from financial ruin and collapse. And everything will be A-OK. And that's God. That's perfection. That's literally what these people say. And anybody who disagrees with them is evil. I don't know how the space got here. I really don't. I don't know how we got to maximalism. It's nuts. It's just nuts. It was a different time, 2009, 2010, 2011. It was a wild time. Bitcoin was not serious. No one took it seriously. It was fun. People talked to each other. People communicated like human beings. People got excited when people did stuff. People sold alpaca socks for Bitcoin. People created a website called BitMint. I bought an Xbox 360 on BitMint. I won't tell you how much I spent, but that Xbox I will never get rid of because it's worth millions and millions of dollars now. Okay? But back then it didn't matter. It was all fun and carefree. They traded Bitcoin on spreadsheets. It had a great culture, and it was very welcoming and accommodating. And the most exciting thing in the world was when some C-list celebrity or some business person said something about Bitcoin. If you go to Bitcoin Reddit, the early days, they said, oh my God, they mentioned Bitcoin on Fox News. Or they mentioned Bitcoin on CNBC. And everyone just got so titillated and excited. And you sent emails to your friends about it. And you say, you got to see this interview. They mentioned Bitcoin. There was a 3-second clip about it. Oh my God. Wow. That was Bitcoin in the early days. And Bitcoin talk was so much fun. And people are going wild with things. And Bitcoin today, it's Max Kaiser and Mike Saylor and these other guys who say, everything that isn't Bitcoin is evil. Everyone who is not a Bitcoiner is a heretic, a mutant, an alien. Do not have hope. Do not have faith. Only believe in the gospel of Satoshi. All others are misleading you to financial ruin. Okay, well, what about if the token has a fixed supply like Bitcoin? Does not matter, cuz pre-mine. Okay, well, doesn't it pre-mine mean just people got something before you at a lower price than you? Yes, it's technically true that Satoshi got 1 million coins mining with almost no energy on a laptop. But remember, he earned those fair and square. Nobody knew how to use the network. Nobody knew how to run the network. Nobody understood anything about Bitcoin. So yeah, it's, I guess, you mine those things. Wouldn't it be more fair to have reset the network in 2010 after there were a lot of miners and called the first year of the network when it was just Satoshi and a few people the test net? Why does he get to keep all those? Well, he took the risk. He gets to have some tokens because he took a risk? Really? You don't say. Huh. And there's nothing else in the space like that if you invent it and take a risk, maybe you get some tokens? Nothing in the space quite like that? Huh. I see. Yes. Okay. Just saying. he wanted to be truly fair, he should have just burnt all the tokens publicly, right? Send them to a burn address or reset the network in 2010 once there was real people participating and say, okay, well, here we go. Create a new Bitcoin. Why not? No, it's the experiment that he conducted. He had no idea if it was going to work or not, and had to be emergency patched several times, including when the Bitcoin script was malformed and you could create Bitcoin out of thin air. Google the Bitcoin inflation bug. That's the horse to ride. By the way, the founder has 5% of the supply, but he's virtuous. He's very virtuous. And you're virtuous too when you buy your place in line and you wait 10 years or 15 years. Wait a minute. If you're going to sell in 10 or 15 years, well, can't the founder sell in 10 or 15 years? Oh, but he's not going to. The anonymous person you've never met and you don't know who they are and you have no idea their motives behind the creation of the project is never going to sell? Well, of course not. He obviously doesn't have access to his tokens, or just is so virtuous has decided not to do that. What if he went to prison? What if he's sitting in a jail cell right now? He doesn't have access to his Bitcoin. Comes back next week, gets released. He's in Thailand or something. Goes first back to his computer and says, holy shit. Oh my God, I got to dump all this. Sells all of it. Would your opinion be the same? You're ascribing virtue to him. See just the infuriating nature of all of this and just how it drives people insane and how insane it is. They're both cryptocurrencies. They both have cryptography. They both have consensus algorithms. They both have wallets, and both are seeking to change the world in their own way. One can do a lot more than the other, but we have to hate each other because of small wedge issues here. Meanwhile, the rest of the world operates on BlackRock and centralized corporations, massive middlemen, government overreach that kills your squirrels, all these things. Somehow that's like not the enemy. In fact, we're willing to welcome that in because BlackRock's a better actor than Cardano and Ethereum. The mind of a maximalist is it's pretty insane when you think about it. Really crazy. The Babel fees, yes, sir. Charles, I've missed some crucial Cardano news recently. You're very critical of DREPs. I'm not critical of any DREPs. There aren't any DREPs right now. There's people registered getting delegated stake, but they haven't gone live yet, and they've made zero decisions. So there's no critical nature. I'm just opining on the philosophy of a month-by-month budget or a pay-as-you-go budget. Sounds like an ICO. I know, right, John? Meditation cannot come sooner. We're losing it, fam. I'm not losing it. I'm just telling it as it is, man. I will always tell it as it is. And I don't give a flying fuck if you're offended. Go home, Buttercup. Aren't you scared the D-reps will fuck things up? It's their decision to do so, not mine. I'm not going to be a D-rep, and I'm not going to serve on the Constitutional Committee. We're just there in the transitory interim Constitutional Committee, but it's your guys' network. I can just tell you what I think, and you can choose to listen to me or not. You know, this man knows his shit when he's talking about the inflation Bitcoin ancient history bug. Yeah, absolutely. We studied it when we designed UTXO, extended UTXO in Plutus. I mean, it's like we invented like what Bitcoin should have for its scripting system. The deficit myth explains that the government money derives its value from taxes. The government doesn't truly incur debt. From its perspective, it simply creates new units as needed. Yeah, but why do you have any incentive to save then? And Raul asked me why I'm so cute. Well, thank you, Raul. I massage and oil my beard daily. That's the key to my eternal youth and boyish charm. Charles, what happened to the Lady of Valor project? It's Legends of Valor. Legends of Valor, not Lady of Valor. Still working on it. It's been put in. It's been put on the back burner while I get all this damn stuff done. I would love to oil your beard one day. You see, right around the 2 hour mark, things get very homoerotic. All right. It bothers people that you're so wealthy and act like a broke loser. How do I act like a broke loser? Like, what part of my life indicates broke loser? Charles, where is the paper wallet? Any news? It's live. It's on Lace. You can create one right now. It's there. The paper wallet generator has been deployed. The paper wallet with the $1,000,000 on it, you can also try to hack it. It's live. It's here. So yes, go to Lace. It exists. Nothing bothers me more when people say, you missed a deadline. You said this. It's like, it's already out. You can already use it. It's there. Okay. Meh. Thoughts on the Linux issue? Yeah, why you don't have centralized organizations decide who gets to participate with a decentralized product. The Linux kernel is a public good. It's the product of the work of thousands of people from more than 100 countries. I'm sorry, Linus, you don't get to go and say that Russians are evil people and all Russians should not be able to participate in geopolitics matter. 135 million people aren't evil. Even if their leader is, they're not. And to wholesale write off all of these people, especially brilliant programmers, is a disgusting and despicable thing to do. But that's just who you are. You have absolutely no empathy for people. Thoughts on uncapping the U.S. House? No. No, 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 no. All right, come on, give me some higher quality questions. Let's discuss a Cardano USDC get together. Again, that's being developed by the foundation. It's up to them to figure out what to do. We're taking a different approach and path, and I think it's going to make people very happy. And I think we have a pretty good solution for the stablecoin conundrum, and we're in some negotiations about that. Once again, back to me. All right, well, I'm just going to go ahead and ban you forever, you piece of shit. There we go. You ask me those questions, you get banned. The formal mathematics AI language thing, how does that deal with incompleteness? Incompleteness is a construction that shows that in general, there's no way to create one set of axioms for the system such that all well-formed formulas in the system can be deconstructed down to those axioms and derive a truth value. It doesn't say that for a particular statement that I'm giving you that you can't dissect that and then deductively prove that the thing is correct according to some baseline of assumptions that you make. So incompleteness is a system-wide issue when you think about Gödel's incompleteness theorem as opposed to a specific issue with a particular problem. So whether the system is complete or not is immaterial to the specific sentence that you're looking at, the well-formed formula you're looking at, the truth value there. Now, it may be the case that while you're searching for a proof that one does not exist because the system doesn't have sufficient axiomatic rigor to prove that statement, you'd have to stumble across that. But what Gödel did is constructed a inductive proof, which showed that as you add axioms to satisfy all well-formed formulas, you can construct a statement outside of the system. It's something called Gödel encodings that allows you then to basically requires you to add another axiom. But when you add that axiom, that very act will then require you can construct another well-formed formula from it. And that new construction basically requires you to add another axiom. So inductively speaking, you have a need for infinite axioms to create a complete system, which is not sustainable. And so the system can't be complete as long as you put all the useful things together. Now, there are complete subsets of mathematics, like Hilbert's geometry, for example, is a complete system of mathematics. But this doesn't deal at all with the AI issue. That's a particular, and you're talking about a general property. Have you seen the assassination scene from Michael Clayton? Yeah, I do recall that. That's an odd one. That's an odd movie, too, to bring up. Aren't you scared of spending 500 million ADA per year? No, not really. First off, ADA comes in every year, so it's not 500 million. It's actually substantially less. Second, the value of ADA will go up. And so even if that's your spending, you'll run a slight deficit with a huge reserve for your first year. But then if you've done the money right, then the next year, then even if your same output in dollar terms is there, the actual ADA spend will be lower, and it'll probably balance out with the inflow into the treasury. So we will have failed as an ecosystem if everything stays flat. We have such large outflows. You got to be bold. If we're going to win and actually make Cardano the number one standard, you have to invest as an ecosystem. And what's really crazy, if you say we as an ecosystem are unwilling to invest in Cardano with our own Cardano money, then why would any VC in their right mind come into our ecosystem? Ask yourself that question. Be honest about it. Why would any VC say, oh, yeah, I'm really excited about Cardano. I think I should invest in Cardano dApps and Cardano projects because they're going places, when the Cardano community itself is like, whoa, 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 whoa. We think Cardano is going to be stagnant, so we have to squeeze out this reserve for the next 150 years. Every block, every transaction, 20% goes into the treasury. You want the treasury to grow, increase the utility of Cardano. It's just that simple. It's an investment in the future. And if you don't think we're able to do that in our current form, then the project won't succeed. There's just too much on the market to compete with it. Charles, did something disenchant you to not want to be part of the governance directly? I'd cause more problems if I was in the mix because I would just become a lightning rod. Basically, people would use me as a MacGuffin to either get legitimacy or to attack me, just say we have to be the rebel alliance against the evil emperor. It makes sense to step out of it and let an on-chain government form because I have too much influence and too much stature as the founder of the system. It's not healthy for people to grow up into a leadership role if the founder keeps popping back in and causing problems. We saw this with Microsoft and Bill Gates. Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer. Ballmer was the CEO, but Gates would keep popping up randomly and doing shenanigans. And he's, oh, you should buy Skype, or oh, you should buy Nokia, or oh, you should do this. And it just created chaos in the organization. So when Satya Nadella took over, he says, oh, no, Mr. Gates is going to take a backseat. And that's what happened. And it went from a $400 billion company to a $3 trillion company. As a founder, you're either all in or you're not in. You can't be half in. You can't be half pregnant. And at this juncture, with the size and scale of Cardano, where it's at, you can't have a founder come in and out, and just mess things up. You have to reassess the relationships. Doesn't mean the founder leaves. It means you have to restructure the relationship. IO, as an engineering company, is one of the best in the world to build cryptocurrencies. We have a ton of ideas. We know how to win. So we're going to say, with a coalition, here's how we think we can win. You know what? You hold us accountable to that. We say, this is the resource we need. Here's what we're going to do. And then you have oversight entities that say, okay, we'll make sure they actually do the work. And then those two things come together, and either it happens or it doesn't happen. If it doesn't happen, you fire them. If it does happen, then you keep going. That is a good service-oriented relationship. But then also saying, oh, Charles, you should be sitting up here on the governance side making all the decisions. Well, then it's a conflict of interest there. No, stay out of it. Just do the work and build things. And people be a lot happier then. And what happens? You get collective wisdom. You get all this swarm intelligence that comes in, because all these DREPs and all these constitutional committee members, their perspectives are valid too. Their beliefs are valid too. Their lived experiences add to the value of the system as a whole. So it's really important that you allow them to be there and grow, because you're not used to governance. They've never done this type of stuff before. They need time to figure out all of these nuances and characteristics of the system. And once they have that time, and they take root, then you have a very powerful system that's very decentralized at its core. And it doesn't do any good at all to go in and mess up the crops. So you let those people do their thing. If you have a romantic relationship with an AI, you're a loser. Yeah, I don't know, man. Those AIs are looking pretty sexy. Is that the Tangem ring you're wearing? No, it's actually Gen 4 Aura ring that I have on. Yeah, we had to add the RIPE-ND 160 primitive to understand Bitcoin fully, but it wasn't actually on our side. We can do all the verifications there, and we can also do foreign field arithmetic to convert from any zero knowledge standard to BLS. So it was actually on the Bitcoin side, being able to build a zero knowledge proof that validates via the taproot. And again, that has to be formalized. And so that's what we're going to look into with the boss people, and it's going to be a fun paper to write. What part of Oahu are you from? I'm from Maui, not Oahu. A little town called Makawa. One more question. I'm looking for it. Something good. What is the best documentary you've ever seen? Jiro Dreams of Sushi. Highly recommend. All right, everyone. I'll clip it here. It's been 2 hours. We've been going hard. Had a lot of fun. We laughed. We cried. I'm sure people will take 30-second snippets, post them on Twitter, and get real angry about them. But you know what? Not my problem. This is probably the last AMA for a little while as we restructure programming. As I mentioned before, I will be out of office for the next week, so you won't see me on Twitter or using any digital devices, at a nice meditation retreat to learn and go deep in. Now, on the other side of it, I'm going to pivot to writing more and pivot to doing more AMAs, less usage of Twitter for everybody's health, and probably look at some Twitter alternatives. I might even set up a Charles Discord, for example, and just have something there. That actually would be really fun to see if we can build a nice community on a Discord. But I'm going to do something different because I'm pretty tired of the way things are right now. And there's definitely a different way to do these types of things. It's been a lot of fun. The last 10 years, there's been lots of ups and downs, but net, it was worth the journey, and I really did enjoy it. You can't stay static. You have to change, you have to grow, you have to change relationships, and you have to do things in different ways. And it's been the privilege of a lifetime watching Cardano grow up and watching the people in Cardano step up and become real people and do real things. And of course, there's politics, and of course, there's duplicitous people. To your face, they say nice things, and then they stab you in the back. But there's a lot of good people that are genuinely good people who actually say genuinely good things. And they mean well, and they want things to work out. It's fun being around so many people who they really do care about the economic, political, and social systems of the world as a whole. And it's fun being around people that just like creating things, like Trim, for example, and all the work he's doing with Pi and Adam Dean on Hydra Doom. Things like that kind of reinvigorate my faith and my belief that we will win and we will get it done. There's a lot of hard stuff, especially the interinstitutional politics and just a lot of people attacking people for no particular reason other than the fact that those people are powerful or have the perception of power, not really understanding that those institutions try to do good. And there's a lot of complaining. But, it is what it is. Name one political system in the world where this is not the case. People just like to do that. But net, I still think we are the shining city on a hill of cryptocurrencies. We've done a lot. We've earned a lot. And we've earned our right in the pantheon. So I will see you guys on the other side. Probably have a lot of insights and interesting things to say and do. This format will change. I'll have a podcast studio at some point, do that whole Joe Rogan thing. Also start interviewing people as well and mix it up. And we'll have better moderation in the comments section and a more healthy, sustainable way to interact with the rest of the industry. I wish everybody well on the Constitutional Convention. I will be there down in Argentina in December. There's 63 elected. So 226 delegates and alternates coming down, plus the Constitutional Convention committee members and a lot of others. I think our total head count's over 300 people now, all in with our personnel and everyone else. So it's going to be a very busy event, very important event. Kind of sad that the Cardano Foundation Summit wasn't held there in Argentina at the same time, because then everybody could have come and celebrated that. But it is what it is. And I heard a lot of people had fun there in Dubai anyway, so I'm glad that they did. And then obviously we have the budget fight, which is the last mile, and it will determine, in my view, the future of Cardano and where we go and what we do. And I'm glad that future is in the hands of the community, and they get to decide what they want. From our part, we'll make suggestions and advice, and we'll tell people the consequences, in our view, of what happens if they vote one way or the other. But ultimately, the community has to make these decisions, and we're better for that. And it means Cardano truly is decentralized. It's a hard and bittersweet thing watching your kids grow up. But you know what's the most exciting part about being a parent in this respect is you get to watch them exceed you and do exceptional things. And I still do believe Cardano's best days are ahead of it. And I'd love to be part of those days, and we'll see how and where we're going to make that happen. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for the good wishes and all the effort that you've put in, and for being here through all these AMAs. There's been a lot of them. Some of you have been around for so long, you remember when I lived in an apartment and I had a wooden dresser behind me with giraffes on it. That was a long time ago, wasn't it? And it's pretty cool that we've had a chance to kind of walk through all the eras and generations and see how things have ebbed and flowed and changed. And we've all grown along the years. So I'll see you guys next time over the internets. Cheers.